Okay.
So I'm Peter,
I'm Jeff.
and we're going to talk to you about Genesis.
So basically, what we've been working on most of the semester is Genesis. And to give a brief recap of what Genesis is, it's basically iOS editing on, you can edit your source code on your iOS device, whether it be your iPhone or your iPad. And last time we talked about the basic architecture, so I'm just going to briefly run over it. Since we can't compile code directly on iOS, we actually connect to a third-party, a developer's own machine, basically, to do all the compilation, running tests, running the actual source code, which solves a whole bunch of problems for us with like dependency management, not allowing to compile code. And in order to solve the one problem of firewalls, because firewalls will tend to block incoming connections, and since the desktop machine is definitely going to be the developer's own machine, not ours, and they could be anywhere. We have a mediator server that's on the internet that both machines will connect to, which will get around the firewall problems. And so most of this semester I've been working on the builder side, which is the side that actually compiles and runs your code and does all source code management stuff. So I added basic standard and standard out and standard error stuff. So the iOS device could, you could run a program that took standard in, like was your name or something, and you could send commands to and from to it. Also, we have version control support now, so you can do Git. I didn't do any of the other ones because I already use Git, but it's flexible enough so that you can implement other source code management systems. It also has actual user authentication, so you can have separate accounts and they're isolated from each other, so it's not like one person that connects can just connect to any other server, any other builder, and try to run their test suite or something. And we have file transfer support, so they can the iOS device can now upload and download files from various projects. And that, I'll end it up with Peter.
Thanks, Jeff. So, like Jeff said, Genesis is a way for you to edit source code and test it on your iOS device. So, as such, we have a ton of new iOS features that I'd like to talk about for our iOS Con. So first and foremost, I rewrote the editor component from scratch. So the thing that actually lets you edit text and writes it to a backend file store is written from scratch. And it's much, much better. If you remember last time, I was using Cortex just to lay out the text, dump it in a big view, which means if you have 10,000 lines, we're going to take up 10,000 lines of memory worth of storage and stuff like that. And also, we were doing WebKit to use Google Code Prettify for our syntax highlighting and round-tripping through WebKit and a non-jitted WebKit for our source highlighting. Pretty gruesome stuff. So I fixed that actually, and it's significantly better. So first and foremost, we have native syntax highlighting. Now how do we know what to highlight? Well, on the Macintosh, there's this awesome text editor that people use a lot called TextMate. And other people have built sort of wrappers around TextMate bundles for their editors. So you can import them into Vim, Sublime Text, lots of other editors. So we actually use TextMate language definition files for our syntax highlighting. Meaning, if you've got another language, or you'd like to highlight LaTeX or Objective-C or some strange language that's not supported necessarily by these TextMate language bundles, tons of people, there's a massive community of people already working on these, so we can pull from that open source stuff to do our language definition. We don't have to duplicate effort. We also use TextMate for themes, for colors. So a lot of people have their favorite TextMate color theme that they like to use. I have one that I like. I'm sure Jeff has one that he's specialized for. And now you can import those straight into Genesis, and we'll detect those automatically. Lastly, we have custom font support. So if the user has a .ttf or .otf font that they like to use to edit source code the best, and maybe we don't have the license to ship that with the app, or it's some strange proprietary font that they like to use, they can add it right through right into the app. We ship a new font actually. Instead of Courier, I switched the default to Inconsolata, which you'll see soon. It's really, really pretty, and it's an openly licensed font, so that's what we use for our source code. We also have this really nice above keyboard view, so this shows up above the keyboard, and this has standard editor features like you'd expect. Indentation, autocomplete support, which constantly pulls the document looking for new symbols to autocomplete to, and a hide keyboard button to hide the keyboard. It's pretty awesome. So with that, I'd like to give you guys a quick demo. So I'm going to give this demo off of a real iPhone, and there's no back-end hard-coded, shady stuff going on. There's no smoke and mirrors. And kind of the first part of the demo is a little bit sort of hard to see, but really cool. So if you'll notice, right next to Asher, between Asher and Matt, there's a MacBook Pro. That's Jeff's Mac. And Jeff's Mac is connected up to the Genesis mediator server in the cloud, like you saw in his diagram. And this instance of Genesis that I'm going to run on my phone is configured to pull from that cloud service. So when I start Genesis, these projects are populated from the cloud. These are projects that Jeff has on his Mac. We're sending over this project data on how to find both projects, or both systems, so the iOS device and Jeff's Mac, through the cloud. But this source code never hits that mediator server. So you don't have to trust your software to some strange third party, some foreign cloud service that you might not trust. Now, furthermore, if you didn't trust our internet cloud service, you could run your own also, if you're like really secure. So you'll notice these are some projects that Jeff has, sample, yaks, and describe. So we'll go into the sample project. Now, right now, we don't have UI refreshing, so you'll see that it's pooling from the internet up there, that little ticking. So I think if I go back and back in, hopefully we'll see some files, or maybe not, but it does work. It's really awesome when it works. So, I mean, it is actually, looking for these projects, and there's a little bit of some cohesion there with regards to working. But I'm going to work on this native project I've got here. Hopefully, don't worry, this happens never. All right, so we've got this fallback. We've got this fallback version that doesn't have any of the networking stuff, so hopefully everything's fine there. All right, so we're in our fresh version of Genesis. I'm going to make a new project. We'll call it, what do you guys think we should call it? All right, a lot of audience participation. We'll call it a project. So we'll make a new file. Now, last time you remember, Genesis was extension agnostic. It would just attempt to do language detection based on the contents of the file. We don't do that anymore. It's too difficult of a problem to do with the native syntax highlighting. So we detect based on the extension, and that extension file type detection is all done through the language bundles from TextMate. So that'll just work. So we'll call this file.py. So hopefully you guys all know Python. So this is the new editor view. You'll notice when we go into it, we dismiss the status bar and the navigation controller because we don't need to see it. If we hit the keyboard, it would just come back. Because you don't really need to see that when you're writing code, and it makes a big difference, especially when you're in landscape. You notice you've actually got some lines to work with versus like 1.5. So I'll just start typing some code. And you'll notice this is syntax highlighting in real time. So it knows that when I haven't started typing the name of a function yet, I shouldn't color def, because it's not technically a symbol yet because it's not defining anything. As soon as I start typing the name of this function, it'll highlight. And the parentheses stuff, we're still working out some of the more complex regular expressions for coloring those appropriately. But you'll notice when I complete them, they do. And the indentation button works just as you'd expect. We can just indent a line and start typing. It's a very complicated function. And the really cool stuff is like, so we have this touch UI, right? So it shouldn't just work like I've got Vim or TextMate on my phone. It should do some cool stuff. So I can take my 2 fingers and swipe across a line to indent it 1 level, and swipe left to unindent it 1 level. So if I hopefully can get this gesture right, you see it just moves really, really very easily, actually. I can move anything around I want. So that's kind of cool, right? So now I'd like to show you really quick just autocomplete. So like I said, every time you type a character, we continuously crawl the file for a new symbol, right? This is something an editor just should have. You can't really use a source code editor without autocomplete. So if we just start typing on this next, this isn't the same Python, obviously. Nothing after the return statement would get executed. But if I just type R, you'll notice that it knows, oh, you want to type return. So we just tap this oversized key in the keyboard there, and it will autocomplete return for us and highlight it appropriately. Now let's say I had another word like reply or something, another word that started with R, and I type an R again. So now its current best guess is that you wanted to say reply, but it has 2 pending autocomplete suggestions. So if we tap there, we'll see the pending autocomplete suggestions, and you can tap either of them to get them to insert. So let's say we actually meant return. We'll tap that, and we're good. And that should have changed. It's no longer red. It shouldn't be red anymore. Okay, it's fine. That's a quick demo of Genesis editor features. So this file is saved to disk, and if we had the networking stuff rigged up, these changes would propagate automatically over to your Macintosh. And or your Unix box or Windows machine, whatever. And nobody ever has to see your code but you. So with that, we'll switch back to the slides, and hopefully I can be joined by my colleague Jeff. So thank you for listening to us. And this is Jeff and I's last presentation, or second to last at least, unless we give one for the summer kids. This is our last one for a project. So thank you to Morthy for being our research advisor and being infinitely patient with me while I didn't have a real project last semester and when I take a month to give him Yelp data and stuff like that. Thank you to Sean O'Sullivan as the benefactor for this whole program, without which we wouldn't have RCOS. And thank you to each and every RCOS member who has really made me more than optimistic about the future of computer science at this university. I think this is really exciting stuff, some of the coolest stuff that's going on anywhere, and I couldn't be more proud of my alma mater. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to questions. Yes?
So like a lot of times in Python, it's really beneficial to indent like entire blocks, not just like one line at a time. Is there any possibility that you would in your thing do that, or would it be able to do that?
So it's maybe about half an hour of work done from away from being able to select multiple lines and one gesture indenting all of them. But absolutely.
It would definitely work if once we get like selection where you can select the text, then you could just, it'd be a lot more intuitive to just swipe it.
Jared?
So, just out of curiosity, Jeff, you were talking about Git support?
Yeah.
So does that mean that when you basically like submit changes from your phone, it does like some kind of, it like commits it?
Do a Git, yeah. Right now the interface doesn't have any of that to actually do the repo, but yeah, it's all there, so you can actually say, you know, add these files to staging, and then, you know, here's the commit messages I would like to say, and stuff like that.
But when you do version control actions on the phone, you're basically acting like you're your computer. Right. So there's not a separate Git instance. You know what I mean? When you're writing a commit message or whatever, you're committing on that computer. Any other questions? Yep.
Is it going to be ready for the App Store soon?
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right.
Put it on the App Store. It'll be free. So really blow those paid guys out of the water. Any other questions or anything like that?
I was playing around with the simulator last night. I think I know why it crashed, and I got it to I'm not crashing the simulator.
Okay.
Yeah, you had something commented when it shouldn't have been. So like I'm gonna try that and see if it works. So.
Classic. Cool. Thank you.
So hopefully we can get that next.
When it changes, what could possibly go wrong?
Yeah, exactly. Anything else? Well, thanks everybody. Since I joined RCOS from first semester sophomore year, it's been absolutely great. So thanks for a fantastic research effort.